Hey guys! So many people asked me on where to start, how to work with JavaScript, where should my first line of code be, what editor I need, etc. Now to clarify all that, this lecture will tell you what you need if you want to run JavaScript or probably write your own HTML page on your local systems. Now it doesn't matter if you're using a Mac or a Windows or probably any other operating system, as long as you can work on a laptop or a desktop, that should be fine. Now, the first thing that we need out here is you need a text editor. Now, it doesn't matter which text editor that you like or you use. I personally like Sublime Text. It's very easy and it's more developer friendly. Again, you may have a learning curve if you haven't used Sublime Text before, but as you can see on the page on sublimetext.com, you can see a lot of features that the text editor provides. Of course, you can use Notepad, Notepad++, TextMate, or probably Atom, and in fact, any other editor that you may have. So feel free to use that, but I would recommend that if you're using Sublime, that will be very easy for you because most of the front-end developers which code in JavaScript, HTML, CSS, they love Sublime Text. And of course, these days even Atom is a very good competitor to it. So feel free to use any editor. And if you need to download Sublime Text, just go to sublimetext.com. I will also put this in the resources section so you can go and get the file. Now let's write a first file on our local system to access the JavaScript or probably the HTML so that we can play with it. So let's say you have a Sublime Text. You just go on to Sublime Text and say create a new file. So you can just do a file, new file, and once you do a new file, something will come up. Now once you do that, you can just save it, or the way you can save it is either you do a Command S on Mac or you can do a Control S so that you can save the file. Once you save the file, you can go to the directory that you want to save to and type in index.html. Now, just to let you know that any application, any website, or any static web page too, usually the start is always an index page, which is index.html. So it is always advisable you use that name because that's more like an industry standard. So anyone can understand that this is the starting point of your web application or your website or web document. Now, once you create that, let's just save it. So we have the new file created. Now I will write a little bit of HTML, which is very intuitive to understand, but I will also elaborate it because not everyone may have the right background to understand it. So let me just write the first few lines, which is doc type. Now the doc type tells the document or probably the browser that this is an HTML document. So treat it as an HTML syntax document. Now the way you write the syntax or probably the way you start your HTML file is open the arrow, say HTML, close the arrow, go down, put a backslash and HTML. So that's your HTML document. So anything that is in between this two directives is your HTML document and that will be displayed on your website. Easy, right? Now let's create two small components. One, which is the head. Now when you create a head means nothing but the meta tags or meta elements for an HTML, which means that if you have something that you want to pass in as an information, usually all your meta tags or probably any information about your website or your document that other resources need. Let's say for example Google searches it, so a lot of information that Google gets will come in from the head tag. Similarly, let's say you share your link or your website on Facebook or Twitter, it automatically populates a lot of fields for you, like the title of your page, the small description, or probably an image at times. So all of that usually happens in the head section. Now let's quickly give a title as I mentioned. So let's say we give a title and let's give the title as my header. Very easy. Now once you define the head, let's go and write the body of it. So you do the body, and in the body when you go, you can have many elements. You can give anything that you want, and of course you can see the typography or probably the elements that you can use in HTML. You can just search for it on the net and you can find very good articles about it if you don't know HTML. I will use two of the HTML tags here to show you how it looks on the screen. So whenever you need to give a header in HTML, you usually start and say h1, which is the biggest element or biggest header that you can use on a page. Let's do h1 and say this is my head, welcome. let's make it header because the head tag is already used, right? So let's make header welcome. And if you need to give in some text, you usually use a P tag. P stands for paragraph. Let's do the paragraph, and I can just say this is my para. Let's save the file, and then you can go into the file system where you see the index.html. You can either do an open with something like usually a browser. You can use Google, Safari, Firefox, and any other browser that you have. And again, as because it's an HTML, it also gives you option for the text editors that you have. Now let's say I open it with Google Chrome. Now once I open this file with Google Chrome, I can see my head got displayed here, my header and welcome got displayed here, and this is my paragraph. Now in the next coming lectures, I will also show you on what you can do in JavaScript or how you can write JavaScript. So there are many places and many ways you can use JavaScript in a document. Now we may not use the same index.html that we just created across the lecture, because in the next video I'll tell you there is a very special online application that pretty much acts like a web editor, and it helps us code and communicate and collaborate. So I will share that details in the next video, but if for people who want to work offline, this is a very good starter template, and everything that we do in the lectures, you can take this as a template. Of course, I'll upload it in my resources and get started along with me in the lectures. Very easy and intuitive. Now, even if you have any questions or you don't get anything, feel free to reach out to me in the Q&A section. Now, when you ask me a question, I'll usually respond within a couple of hours, but if of course I'm sleeping, I cannot. So maximum a day or two that I respond to. And the most important for students who are already trained in JavaScript or probably ahead, and if you see a question like that who needs someone who needs help, feel free to respond to with your answers so that they can get started as quickly as possible. Now that being said, I'll see you in the next class.